Well, good morning, everybody. This is Rick Dancer. This is Get Real with Rick Dancer, and my phone was pinging this morning. I've been asking questions, trying to find out what's going on with Lane County, and today the governor is scheduled to announce at 10 o'clock which counties are opening. But Lane County Commissioner Pat Farr joins us now. You were at the dentist this morning, so having a very boring morning.
It's pretty exciting with the news coming out.
Yeah, so we have big news. Lane County, we made the cut. We're on the list. So kind of talk with folks about what that means.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're able to go to what the governor has called phase one. We submitted a blueprint that has been approved to enter the governor's phase one. Now, in addition to that, I'll talk about phase one in a second, but as a county, we have asked the governor for broader latitude regarding relaxing restrictions and monitoring it on a county by county basis. Our health department has done a superb job of giving guidance all along, and we have one of the lowest rates of infection in the county, one of the highest rates of recovery in this county. And my personal feeling, and this is my personal feeling, is that we would be able to monitor things in our county in ways that would help us to move a little bit more aggressively, perhaps. Aggressively is not the right word, but more cautiously forward, to allow us to go beyond the governor's rules. As of tomorrow, however, we're in phase one of the governor's plan.
So this would also like to have local control over that. It would also give, we don't have to go through all the processes. It's like you take it to Pat, you take it to Jay, you take it to the health department, mm-hmm. and we can make some move, and we could move faster to downgrade if we needed to, or to pull back if we need to, without having to go through all these processes.
And that is an important part of it, is understanding that as we move forward, we have to be cautious about rates of infection spiking, for instance. If we see that, then we would be prudent to have a reverse plan, which we would have in place.
So what's included on this? Do we know?
Well, I'm trying to get clarity as we go through the morning. More or less, what I can pass along is that it's on a honor basis for the businesses to open. They can go to our website, Lane County's website. Just go lanecounty.com/blueprint, or they can just go there and follow the links. It'll get to the blueprint, and from there you can load the governor's blueprint, and it gives the general guidelines for opening a business. And really, once again, it becomes a business by business honor system that is complaint driven. So like many things in life, if somebody complains and you look at it.
So, and I already know from a lot of from my barber and a lot of my clients who are restaurants, they are ready to, Northwest Burgers is one of them. They're ready to hit the ground tomorrow. Tables have been moved. Things are, they're ready to go. So people, I mean, this is exciting news for business owners.
Well, it is. It gives them the latitude to move forward. And, many businesses, there are going to be some businesses that don't want to. I'm hearing that on a regular basis from some salon owners that have pleaded with us to not allow for any salons to open. And the general feeling that I have, that I'm a part of, is that if salon owners don't want to open, if people don't want to open their business, they do have that option.
So when the governor speaks this morning, I know you're not, on the list of what she tells everybody what's going to happen, but do we know she's going to list all the different counties? Do we know how many counties were approved?
I don't exactly. I think it may be as many as 30, but I'll wait to hear the exact details on that.
And then is everybody's the same plan unless we get, so the governor's plan is what's going to be approved, which is said restaurants have to limit how many, where they are, how many people can be there, that sort of thing. No gatherings gatherings can now be up to 25, but no more than that. What you're hoping happens in Lane County is we can have a little more control of that and say, maybe there's a specific instance where we go to 30 or something, like that.
That is what we've asked for, and we're waiting for a response on that. I think we'll probably see the governor's phase one in operation for a few days. This is once again my personal thoughts on it. Is we'll see the phase one in operation for a few days. People, business owners, can look at phase one and the recommendations. For instance, we have the governor is going to recommend that people wear masks in public. It's not required. But for businesses, it's once again on a case-by-case basis. I see David Lovell. Hi, how you doing? Complaint-driven means neighbor turns against neighbor based on one's own self-appointed fears. In no small part, it's like zoning and codes. If you have a neighbor who is storing tires in their backyard, typically they're not going to get busted unless the neighbor says this guy's storing tires in his backyard.
That
Similar
is
type of thing.
that is a concern, because I think this whole thing has kind of done that. And I'm not dragging you into this conversation because I know you're political. You have to be careful here. You are representing a lot of different people, but that's one of the things that does bother me too, is like all of a sudden somebody sees, goes in and they don't like a restaurant, or they see somebody without a mask. And I mean, people are so sensitive about it. It's like, let people have some time to kind of figure this out too. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, I hope that people will be generous when they're attending businesses, and realizing that, just because you think it's the way the business should be doing it doesn't mean that's right. You know what I mean?
I'll give you an example. I was in a local garden center that I used to be the manager of, as a matter of fact, the other day, and I was wiping the handles on a cart, putting it back, and there was a woman who walked by me and I had my mask on, and she walked by about 15 feet away, and she looked at me and said, "Don't you know anything about social distancing?" Well, I was 15 feet away cleaning a cart. So that was her personal observation. And, David continued to ask, what does spiking mean? I'll get to that in a second, David, but thanks for that question.
I'll go back to that question there so you can see it.
Really, Debbie and I walk quite a bit, and we walk on trails that have other people, and cycle sometimes. We always go single file. And some folks walked by us, and they had a problem with us walking on the trail. And then other folks walked by us and kind of brushed our shoulders. So It's a matter of people. I believe that we'll have a greater chance of greater latitude if people adhere to the standards that are recommended, the personal protection that's recommended. The closer we come to that, then the easier it's going to be to get more to a normal phase, in whether it be 21 days or 21 days after that. I have camping reservations in mid-June. The coast. I want to go.
What's talk about, David? He's saying too, there's the spike number.
Yeah.
That's, I think what people have to do is take a deep breath too, because we are going to probably see a spike, because you have taken people and unnaturally locked them into their homes. In order for the human body to work right, it has to be around bugs and viruses and things, so that it builds immunity towards them. Well, we've kind of stopped that process. So now to reopen that process, people have to understand you are going to see some spikes. And I'm not an entomologist or a biologist or any of that stuff, but I do know how to read. And that's what it tells us. That's the scary part, I guess, is what's the spike, and is there a fear on your part too, Pat? I think if one of the thoughts I had, and you don't have to answer this necessarily if you don't want to, but one of the thoughts I had is if we come back and all of a sudden you try to put us back in lockdown, it's going to be really tough to get people to go back again. That's probably why it's taken so long to get to this point.
And I agree. We certainly want to do everything it takes to not have to go back into lockdown. Regarding the spike, another dynamic that we have to be aware of is that we're testing far more people now. So a numerical spike is less significant than a percentage of the percentage of tested cases coming back positive. And we're actually still plateaued, or actually on the downswing from where we were peaking on a day-to-day basis. So really we'll monitor it very heavily. It's our responsibility and our duty as a Board of Health and with our health department to monitor it.
So what at this point going forward, what would you ask of people at least here in Lane County where you represent? What would you ask people to do?
Well, some of the things that I would ask aren't particularly comfortable. The using personal awareness and trying to adhere to the governor's recommendation regarding distancing, on trails, trailheads, wherever it may be. Don't cause somebody to complain about you, because once again, that is where things do originate. And some people have a different set of tolerances and standards. I'm being generous with that response.
Yeah, you're being really generous, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, and some people do, but we have to be aware that some people have those tolerances and have a greater propensity to complain about things that other people may not complain about.
You're being very kind. I think that I read that there is this thing where people were saying we're all in this together. And yeah, in some ways we are, because we're a culture, but we're not all. I think people need to really understand that there have been people who haven't been working for 8 weeks and don't have a paycheck. And there's been people who have been sick with this. There's been people who have died from this. So everybody's coming from a different place, but we're in this together. But it's different. You're going to come from a different perception if you still are getting a check and going, well, of course we should be home and nobody should be going to work. Well, that's because you're getting a paycheck.
Yeah, exactly. You know, my hygienist this morning, I was off work. The dental office was closed for 8 weeks. They've returned to operation using a different kind of equipment. They can't use their sonic equipment. And some hygienists don't like not using sonic equipment, but because it does cause aerosols. My dentist was able to open his office earlier than other dentists because of the precautions they put in place. And so he's an example. My dentist is an example of what the things that you can do to make your customers feel safe. To make casual observers feel safe, and to draw down on the possibility of complaints. Don't start fires in your backyard, man.
Do we know, Brad Asher's asking, who will follow up on complaints? Who's going to enforce these rules?
Yeah, well, you know, that tends to fall back to the county, and we have limited resources, as you know, for in the sheriff's department. So we can't really count on the sheriff to put out extra deputies to enforce complaints. So the complaints will probably go through the health department, I would guess. I'm speculating a little bit on that. I'm waiting for the exact mechanism in place because we don't have added resources to follow up on complaints.
But the bigger issue might be, Pat, that we just don't want to have a bunch of complaints because it's, you know what I mean? What I'm saying? And if I'm not making sense, I'm on Percocet. I've had surgery, so I do have some, I'm on some pain-killing drugs. So if I'm not making sense, you cover me, okay?
No, you're doing great, Rick. And you know, the thing, I have this. I love it. And I wash it daily, and I have a couple of them. So I'm not wearing this to protect me. I'm wearing this to protect people around me who I'm protecting from my aerosol spray. So if somebody says, well, I'm not going to wear a mask because I think I'm safe. Well, it's not our own safety that is really the high concern. It's the safety of those around us if we're wearing a mask. This mask isn't going to protect me from anything. You know, I mean, look at the gaps. But it's going to make it so that if I sneeze, it contains the sneeze. And if I breathe out, it contains my outgoing breath. So I'm, you know, the people that I may come into contact with are protected from me.
If people, Vaughn says, if people need to feel safe, then doesn't that say people aren't ready yet? Go ahead.
Well, I'm not sure exactly what that question means. You know, safety is a pretty broad issue. You know, I mean, do we feel safe on the roads? Do we feel safe, you know, walking down the street at night? Safety is a personal condition. What makes you feel safe it varies broadly.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Some people are going to think that you're unsafe, even if you do wear a mask, and some people are going to think you're just fine without a mask. You know,
right. It's that grace. You know, I mean, I think we need to give people a lot of grace because there's. I've seen online the mask is the biggest thing right now. Is everybody's like shaming people if they don't, shaming people if they do. You know, and it's like, you know, I think somebody on here said we don't need tattletales. Oh, here we go. We don't need tattletales. People just need to be smart about life. And your idea of smart about life and mine may be two different things because of our background and where we came from. So that's what I mean about the grace.
Well, and there's to put it kind of, I don't know, very simplistic. What about stop signs, man? When have you ever cruised through a stop sign? Well, it's illegal, you know, and if somebody sees you, you'll probably get gigged for it.
Right. Especially if it's a police officer or a sheriff's deputy.
Well, exactly. You know, so Jennifer, thank you for that. The goal is to open with safety precautions, and then the person before that said we don't need tattletales. Well, we don't, and you know, not giving people reasons to feel like they should be a tattletale, because once again, Rick, some people are more inclined to do so. Right. Others are inclined to let be.
And I do like what you're saying there, because I think people have to understand. I think sometimes we get involved with our friends or our little world or our work group, and we think everybody thinks like that. You being a politician, and I've been there.
I hate to say this, I'm not one.
No, but to be in that job, you see that there are people on all kinds of spectrums that come in and say all sorts of things. So people really, there are people out there watching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If some people don't feel safe and are not ready for the opening, shouldn't they just stay home? Yeah.
Wade, I agree with that. Some people don't have the option of staying home, and we know why, because people need to go back to work. People need to begin taking their kids to childcare, for instance, so that they can go back to work or resume their more normal economic activity. So if people don't feel safe, they can stay home, certainly. But we understand that some people really need to get back to work, in which case we should, I believe, stay as close to recommendations as possible so everybody can feel safe and nobody feels like they have to tattle.
I like Bonnie's. It's sad that people can't be respectful of others' beliefs, values, and morals. If you're scared, stay home, and if you're not, don't. And that goes for both of sides of this whole issue. That's what I mean. Give people a little grace, you guys. The public needs to use kindness and respect, no matter what view you may have. Respect is key to opening up.
Exactly. And Rick, I'll say this one thing. There's the old adage about if there's a 2x4 stretch between two buildings, will you walk across the 2x4? Well, no. But what if your grandchild was in the burning building on the other side of the 2x4? Would you walk across it? Well, yeah, I would at that point. So safety and going out, there's a critical point where people get to the point where they forsake or forego, or less inclined to be as strict about safety because they have to go out. They have to go to work. Otherwise, they're not going to pay their mortgage or whatever it may be. So, bearing in mind that people once again have sliding standards, sliding sets of personal adherence to rules or recommendations, and just, being, as somebody said, being personally respectful.
So Nancy says, don't folks need to police each other in order for this to work? Turning I think you mean blind eye kind of enables bad behavior. But Nancy, and I'm not going to, Pat you can do what you want. Nancy, I disagree. I think that's, we don't police each other. You police yourself and your family and the people you're around, because it's not turning a blind eye. And who gets to decide what's bad behavior? To me, that's just my own personal opinion. I think that opens the door. It's not my job to police you, and it's not your job to police me. That's my opinion. Pat can do what he wants.
And I agree with you, really, as a general statement. Yeah, but sometimes I personally need to be reminded that I'm not doing something that I should be doing, and a gentle reminder for me is welcome. For instance, if I'm looking at my radio, turning the dial and the lights turn green, a gentle reminder from the person behind me, hey, go, dude, light's green. I accept that. I guess it depends on what policing means and how you go about doing it, how you go about reminding people.
Right. And one thing on a different issue that, it's effective is talk to the person. What I would rather see people do is, if you see somebody who is violating this, or then maybe go to them personally. I've seen online where somebody says, my neighbors have too many people at their house right now, and they're going public with this. And I'm going, well, why don't you go over next door and say, I'm concerned as your neighbor that you may be putting yourself in danger by having this many people over there, and it's your business, but I just want to offer that input. If people did that instead of talk behind their back, or went in and called the morale police, if we did that with each other, then it also opens relationship. It opens us up to new doors, and people listen more. You know what I mean? I think we're going to listen more to somebody when you come up and say, I'm concerned about you, and you're not wearing a mask, and that concerns me, and I just want you to know that. You get to do what you want to do and then walk away. But to go up and be the morality police, nobody likes people banging on their head. You know what I mean? We don't listen. Yeah. I don't think we learn from that. I think we have to be, again, I'm sorry, go ahead.
If somebody is very forceful about reminding you, you don't hear the reminder. You're judging their style, so be aware people need to be aware of that. It's not unlike parenting, parenting, which many of us have done. In order for our children to learn, they need to be reminded.
Jennifer,
more importantly, people need to be caught doing things right. Please go ahead.
Jennifer Knapp is a really good friend of mine. She's happy to see so many talking about respect and kindness. Even those who may not feel safe enough to go out are still affected by the actions of others. And thanks, Pat, for advising people to follow the guidelines and be careful so we can be successful with this whole thing. Andy says, thanks for sharing this dialogue. Looking forward to normalcy. Andy, I'll just give you a warning. I think normalcy is going to be very unnormal. So, don't you think, Pat, here going forward?
I'm not sure what normal is anymore. I have a grandbaby who wants to hug me. It seems normal that they would be able to. Somebody just said we don't want Mrs. Kravitz. Everybody's remembers Bewitched, or many of us do.
Oh my God, Mrs. Kravitz! I do remember her on Bewitched.
Yeah, she's always looking through the
nosy neighbor. Yeah.
No, nobody responds to that. Everybody recognizes a Mrs. Kravitz. But if my wife says to me, "Pat, put your mask on," I'll accept that. If somebody in the store says, "Excuse me, your mask slipped," I'll say, "Oh, thank you."
Bonnie, I can't repeat what you wrote, but stay humble and be a decent human being. True. But yeah, you speak as you wish. Neil Moyer, I would like to see our local electeds reject the questionable decisions made at the state level.
Rejection of state guidelines or state rules comes with a price. So, anything that we do that is contrary to what is in law, then, once again, we have to be prepared for whatever consequences happen.
Bonnie, you're laughing. If Pat wasn't here and this wasn't like such a public forum, I'd repeat what you said. It wouldn't scare me.
Bonnie, you can call me on my phone and say those words right out loud.
Yeah. If you want to say the F word, bye, honey. My wife's going. Thank you. Perhaps new normals can just be here. Yes, that's true. You guys, I encourage you to go back and read some of the statements. I'm not able to put all of them on because they're very, very long. And valuable, but they're just very, very long. Pat, I know you have things other than this to do, and I thank you so much for being available. I think, we got a press conference, you guys, at 10 o'clock. Yeah. I would recommend going to OregonLive.com. They will have that live for you. You can hear out of the words of the governor's mouth what she has to say, and then you can decide for yourself. But I just wanted to get ahead of this a little bit because we are Lane County, and we wanted to find out what we're doing, right?
And Rick, people can call me on my phone. And after the last show where I was live with you, I got quite a few telephone calls. Please don't hesitate to do that. The guidelines are on our Lane County website.
What is it, Pat? Can I put it in here?
Yes, 541-682-4203, which will guide
4203.
It'll get forwarded to my desk. If I'm at my desk, which is not as often as it generally is, I'll answer it. Otherwise, it goes to my computer and I'll return the call.
Okay. So you guys, again, that's Lane County Commissioner Pat Farr. He will take a phone call if you have other questions specifically, especially after you've heard, the governor talk today and what she's had to say. If you have more questions, dig a little. Go ask. Don't go online and just spout off if you don't know what you're talking about. Go to the source. We can go right here to Pat, and you can ask a question. I'd love to help, Pat. Call me. Dave Lovell said he'd love to help you out.
I have your number, Dave. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's going to take everybody kind of doing this together to make this all happen. So again, share this on your page. Let other people see it. Let them know what's going on here in Lane County. For Douglas Coos, I know you're on the list. I don't know if anybody else will find that out today at 10 o'clock. And you can talk with your county commissioners to find out more about what's going on. Again, go ahead, Pat.
Go Ducks.
Mine is a scarf, and I look like I'm robbing the hospital when I go in. They go, God, Rick, are you going to hold us up? I said, no, actually, the amount you're going to charge me, you're holding me up. And that's another thing I know. The hospitals, I want people to know that it is safe to come back, and people that need procedures done. I just was I had to have surgery because I had no choice. But the protocol, you are so safe because they are taking you through. I felt safer there than I do at I won't say a name of a shopping center, but a shopping area with 4,000 people in it. I felt much safer at Peace Health and at Slocum getting helped because they were so careful and concerned about making sure people were safe. So don't be, if you need something done that you have to have done and you've been avoiding the doctor, don't avoid the doctor. Go and get taken care of.
And I'm signing off, Rick. Let's talk again after the weekend.
All right, mister. I'll talk to you later. Thank you, Pat.
Bye-bye.
I'm going to take you out of there. There you go. All right. So you guys, that was Lane County Commissioner Pat Farr. Again, Lane County is on the list to open tomorrow. It's, obviously this is phase 1, limited openings. It's going to be, and everything's going to be different. So give people a little bit of grace when you're going into their restaurant, and they're going to be feeling this out as well, like a restaurant or a hair salon. It's not going to be like it used to be right away. And may never, but we're Oregonians. We're rugged individualists. We have a pioneer spirit. We'll figure this out, but we need to keep moving forward and make sure that we are, abiding by the rules. As much as I'm a rule breaker, I don't want to go back to what we were, and I don't want to go back and play this whole thing over again. This is just too much for businesses to put up with and deal with. Okay, so as we all said, what did we learn? Be kind, be generous, don't be a tattletale. If you feel like you need to go tell on somebody, go up and kindly talk with them yourself. And if all else fails, mind your own business. I'm Rick Dancer. This is Get Real. Thank you again, Pat Farr. And it's great to live in a place we can do this, I'll talk to you later.